Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of the Bookum Nook Show. My name is Kyle Colley, and this is an episode of Founders Talk Podcast, a podcast for founders to talk about their stories, ideas, and visions of the future. This episode is brought to you by Bookum, the book community's new and best way to host dynamic online book clubs. Download the app and start your book club today at www.bookumapp.com. My guest today is Winnifred Tataw. Winnifred is the owner of Wins Books, a book publishing company. She is also a book blogger as well as an author of a fantasy series. When not writing or reading, when not writing, reading, or running her business, you might find her creating art with Wins Artistry. Winnifred, welcome to the Founders Talk Podcast.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I kind of want to get started by you talking about your book publishing company. What was the process of starting the book publishing company and some of the highlights so far?
Yes, so it kind of started with my own publishing journey back about 5 years ago when I published my first book, The Child of Tempest, and I really didn't have any guidance through it. So I kind of just went through the motions trying to find and figure out how to edit, how to find editors, how to market my book, how to get a book cover designer. And I did that pretty much by myself. And I decided that I wanted, after my own experiences, to be kind of a resource and guide for other new authors and writers, so they had a better experience and easier flow through their writing and publishing journey. And that led me to now opening up my own publishing company, so I can not only just be a resource, but also be the main stop for all your publishing needs for your books too.
Yeah, and can you talk a little bit about your vision for the book publishing company as far as how you select books and some of the books you look for and all that?
Yes, so one thing too that was very important for me when I finally decided to open this company is to make sure that we are putting voices that aren't usually heard or mainstreamed, especially my marginalized voices. So people of color, disabled, people of the queer community, etc. Because everyone has a story to tell. And I know I've read so many great stories from all types of different diverse communities. And a lot of times we don't get those opportunities to have bigger platforms or ways to publish our work. And I really wanted to focus on making sure that we are a space where you can do that, where you can ask questions, where you can learn more, where you can find resources and other amazing book publishing companies and book publishing providers. So other editors who look like you, other editors who understand you, other book cover designers, etc. Like just everyone across the board has a room and space to be supported. And again, it doesn't look like everybody else, or it doesn't look like kind of how most bookshelves and bookstores look now. That is, again, a very more white, predominantly male and white dominated space. So just making spaces for smaller voices to have bigger voices.
Sure. Yeah. And can you talk to me a little bit about the path? Like, say I'm an author and I'm coming through your publishing. Can you explain how you all do it versus other indie publishers, as well as maybe just how traditional books are published as well?
Right. So for us, I offer both free consultations. So you can actually talk with me before you even submit your book. So you can have an hour of consultation just talking to me about what are your book needs, what you want to see throughout your publishing process, how do you want to publish, what type of book you're writing. And, through this, I kind of just explain our services, I explain what we do, how we could help you. And we kind of just gauge each other to see if we're great fits. If you still feel you're comfortable to submit your book, you just go onto our website, enter your submission for your manuscript, and then we read over it. If we're like, you know what, you're great, and then we get back together, we talk, we sign, of course, the publishing contract, and then we start hitting the ground running. But my biggest thing, again, was to make sure the people who are coming to me know that this is a space of communication, open communication, and that I want you to know that I do care how your book comes out. I am not just publishing, anything just because I can. I want you to know that I'm there with you from the very beginning when you are submitting your book to when we are publishing it finally. So I am there every step of the way. The team of editors, the team of designers, the team of marketers and PR peoples, they're also there every step of the way. So this is a very interactive process that it's not just, okay, here's my book, call me in 12 months. Like, no, we check on you every month and we're making sure, you have your deadline set. We have our deadline set. I want the writers to know that this is how the process goes, so they understand it. So, they're not just going into this blind, and, they're actually, learning as along with me, and along with our publishing company, they're learning and understanding how publishing works. So if they want to publish their own book in the future, or if they're going to publish another book somewhere else, they kind of understand what that process looks like and what they should be expecting, versus just going in there not knowing or not understanding, like, well, I don't know what a contract looks like, or I don't know how to ask for royalty, discuss my royalties, or discuss with a book cover designer what it looks like, or how to shape my own marketing plan. So we really STEM to be very open and have that free communication between our authors, that, we're here and available to help you and guide you. We're not just publishing your book to get money. And, yes, of course, everyone wants to make money from their books and their products, but that is not the only reason why I started this, and that, we have this team of people helping you. We want to really, truly make sure you feel supported throughout the process.
Yeah, and I enjoy these when it's different, different publishing methods, whether you have the indie route or the traditional route. It gives authors flexibility and their own path to how they want to promote their books and go down these different routes. For you as an author, what was enticing about the indie route versus, say, the traditional route of publishing a book?
For me, I think, again, the biggest thing was just the ownership. Like, I get to kind of choose how much work, effort, and time and money I get to put into this. And then, of course, being able to put out my voice. Like I said, a lot of Black women aren't published in, especially the fantasy field, so or fantasy genre. So being able to still be, someone who is like, yes, I'm here, I am publishing, this is my story, these are my stories, and being able to do that and have that freedom of how it looks, how it's edited, how it's marketed, how it's priced. I know for some people it can be overwhelming, but for me, I really enjoyed being able to have a say-so in all of those factors, and be able to give, myself that autonomy. Like, okay, I know what is going, what's happening, how things are being structured, and again, going at my own pace. That's another big thing I tell my authors, that we always go at your pace. Like, yes, we have deadlines, but we're not trying to, like, I'm never gonna publish a book in 3 months. Like, no, like, we're going at your own pace. Tell me what your needs are, tell me what your availability is, and, we work with you. So really, my biggest thing was making sure that, again, I was doing this and I had my own, I was going at my own time, without feeling pressure to always be like having to publish, having to write, because as I was publishing, I was also in college. So I had a lot of other priorities as I was doing it. So just that freedom and flexibility that indie publishing gives you really attracted me to it.
Yeah, and I think it's so interesting because you kind of have a lot of different crafts now. So you do you do writing, you have your own publishing house, you do art. How do you kind of integrate all those different things to make a unique experience for yourself as an author, but as well as people that work underneath your publishing house?
Yeah, so I would say one is have three agendas at all time on me, making sure that I always say I'm a self-proclaimed time management queen. I always like to make sure I'm on time. I always like to make sure I schedule things out ahead of time. Just to even scheduling break times kind of help me, focus and center myself so I can do all these amazing things without feeling burnt out, and without feeling overwhelmed and without overwhelming others, because I've seen that people who are overwhelmed tend to spread that to others, and that's not what I want to do. So being able to just manage my time and plan accordingly when I can. Of course, life happens and sometimes mistakes happen and things get delayed, but I mean, we literally just came out of a pandemic, if that's not the biggest delay there is, but and just things like that. So being able to, just have that, again, freedom to, this is how I'm going to structure my day or my week or my month. And, just be, have that freedom to be like, okay, this week I'm doing art, this week I'm doing publishing. But now that we've opened the publishing company, it's a lot more publishing company books than art.
Yeah.
Sometimes weeks, or again, weeks, it varies by weeks, but being able to really schedule and set times and dates for my rest also helped me to, again, not overwhelm myself or burn myself out.
Yeah, talk to me about marketing a little bit and how you all do marketing at your publishing company. Because as an author, you write this book and you're so happy to get it on the shelves or just on the internet. And then you find out that there's a whole thing of marketing that now you're like, oh, well, I just thought you thought it was one of those, field of dreams where I write the book and people come, but it's not always like that. So as a publishing house, can you talk a little bit about marketing, what you all do, as well as what you maybe even ask the authors to do when it comes to marketing?
Right. So it's funny you say that, like, because when I did publish my first book, I thought, oh yeah, I just publish it and I'm going to be a New York Times bestseller at the end of the week. Like, I don't have to do anything. And then after a week came and I was like, why am I not a I'm like, what happened? Like, I'm not famous yet. What happened? So I had to go back to the drawing board and do research and realize that regardless, this is another tidbit kind of for readers and listeners, that regardless of what type of publishing route you take, whether you're traditional, whether you're indie, whether you're hybrid, whether you even do vanity, which it's its own thing, but whichever one you do, you are going to have to market your book. I don't care how big of a publishing deal you got with whoever, you're going to have to market your book, because every publishing house is not just you they're publishing. It's not just you they have to market. They have to market you and maybe 100 other books that are coming out that week. So what we do everything from your web design to social media graphics to videos to content creation to, again, scheduling out your marketing plan. And we do a full year, or up to 18 months. And we still help you market even after your book is published. And that's through book tours, that's through interviews, that's through speaking engagements. So we, again, us and our partners, we help, again, the author be proactive in marketing their book. Like I said, we are not just going to put you on the side, say, okay, they give us your book, we'll do everything. Like, no, we're going to be like, okay, how do you want your website to look like? How do you want your branding for your social media content to look like? How do you want your voice? How do you want, like, do you want promotional materials? What do you want that to look like? Is it flyers, banners, brochures, etc.? We want you to be hands-on on how you present yourself to the world, because again, this is your book. You know your book better than anyone else. I was not there with you at 3 a.m. while you were frantically writing out that last chapter. You were there, so you know how to best represent and talk about this book and its story. So we want your voice to be a prevalent part in how it's marketed too.
Yeah, and marketing's changed so much now. So you have, of course, you have social media, you have this physical, you have in person, like figuring out all those different mediums to make the book pop for people. So do you all do a lot of book fairs as well, or what do you think about as terms of
Oh,
in-person marketing versus, say, on the internet?
Oh, definitely. I think you need a happy mix of both. I was just at a convention last week, no, a week of 2 weeks ago, in Greenville, South Carolina. So I definitely am always down for in-person marketing. I think it's great doing book signings. I think they're very good, especially when you're trying to connect with local bookstores and others in your community, and you always find other opportunities to meet new readers, to meet new partnerships, collaborations. So definitely doing in-person marketing is just as great as doing social media marketing. Again, social media can be sometimes a little less hands-on, but it's still a focal point because we all are in this digital world. So it's just as important. And again, we work with you to make sure you find your happy medium. Some authors like to do more in-person events because they're not very tech savvy. Some like to do more virtual events, more podcasts or interviews, or Q&A sessions or lives. So again, finding that happy medium for you, but knowing that there has to be a medium. So you have to, yes, you have to go out. I know if you're an introvert and you don't like people and you don't like, you have to do it. I promise you, it's going to be a good thing. You have to do it. Again, you don't have to do it the whole time, but still putting yourself out there to talk about your book, to talk about yourself too, because sometimes people are just, you just talk to them and they're like, you know what, you're a great person. I'm going to buy your book just because of that. So you never know how you're going, you're going to find your next reader. So definitely always trying to find a happy medium for the authors and writers out there, finding your happy medium of in-person events and virtual events, and marketing tactics really will take you far.
No, that's well said. And I'm curious about you as a founder. What kind of got you into business, and what are some of the journey or things that stuck out on your path as a business owner?
Yes. So my degree is in studio arts, and I added a marketing minor, especially after my tidbit with realizing, hey, I need to learn how to market my book. And I found that I still gravitated more towards the graphic design or the digital art design of marketing, more so than the actual brains behind the system, logistics wise. But as I grew and I continued, working towards this and publishing, it was actually in 2020 when I published my second book that I realized that there was a big space between my community I was going for supporting authors and people who actually needed the support. There, when the pandemic happened and we were all inside, I was still trying to market my book just like everyone else, but I also realized that as I continued, I I wanted to find a way to not only help support myself, but also support other authors. And I didn't know how to do that at first. So I turned to what I usually do, writing. So I blog on my website. So I started, you know what, I'm going to start doing spotlights for authors and spotlighting their books. And soon as that continued, and as I continued learning and growing in my business and in the publishing sphere, I started to grow and I started to get more connections. And I started to get emails where like, hey, Winnie, I was told you're the lady to talk to about being a new author. Or hey, I heard I just got my book published. I heard that you're the person I need to talk to. And I just kind of became known as the person for new authors to kind of talk to get free and open advice about publishing and writing. And as that continued, more people started asking, okay, but can you publish my book too? Okay, so how do you, and I'm like, oh, okay, let me see what I can do. So again, it kind of, I think my indie author community kind of roped me into this. And I just, took off with it. And again, like as I continue to support more people and collaborate with more people, more people came and did the same for me. And I was able to get into this comfortable space where I was like, you know what? It's not just me anymore. It's not 2019 where it's just Winnie doing all of this. It's now Winnie doing this with a slew of other small businesses, a slew of other authors and book business providers that now I can open my own publishing company and provide services where, again, it's not just me having to run around, try to edit, trying to market, trying to promote, trying to design everything. I now can do this not just with me, but with a full team who's ready to support everyone and who everyone supports as well.
Yeah, it's so interesting how you get into business, right? For some people, it's I was so frustrated with the way this was going, I'm gonna jump in and fix it, right? And then there's people like yourself where it's almost like the reluctant hero, where at first you're like, I figured it out myself. Now everyone's coming up to me like I can help you with this. I have the
Yeah.
domain experience. So even with that, it's just interesting to hear that as a part of your story. Speaking of stories, I'm also interested in hearing about your writing process and some of the early writing that you have gotten into.
Yeah, so my I think with every book, my writing process changes because anytime I see like on some social media platform, they're like, oh, what do you like to do to write? Do you like drinking tea or coffee? Or do you like I'm like, well, I mean, in book 2, I love to drink tea and write by like the window side. And then book 3, I only wrote at night. And then book 4, I wrote between classes. And then so like it kind of just
All
changed.
over the place, yeah.
Yeah, which each book has its own personality. So each book has its own way of how it was created and published. So my writing has always kind of, I think, been very fluid, which is ironic to how structured I am with my business. So my writing, surprise, surprise, was a lot more fluid in how I kind of create it. But I still have a lot of structure in, again, creating world building because I do write fantasy. And that's what I mainly write, but doing world building and creating these stories and creating these characters and backgrounds. So I have tons of PowerPoints where they're like 100 pages long, just about information about the books and the lore and the story and the series, just to keep me focused. Just when I do start writing willy-nilly, I'm like, okay, does this make sense with the other 3 books you already wrote and published? Or are we just going on a full tangent and creating a whole different story? So and then of course, as I continue writing, I have new story ideas that pop up that I'm like, okay, let me put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. My main focus is just to first, at least, I keep saying this, but at least finish the Scions series before I start writing, because I know if I start writing any other books or work in progresses, it's at again, it's gonna that the series is gonna take another 4 years to finish. So we're almost done with it. The 5th book comes out this August, and then the 6th book will come out hopefully sometime next year, or the year, or the year after. And then I can start working on all my other working progresses I've started over the last 8 years too.
Yep, like a true writer. Also, yeah, share about your book fantasy series for those that want to check it out.
Yeah, so the Scions series is about a prince named Roderick, and he can control aspects of time as he's the acolyte of time, and he's the only person on Earth who can do this. And through the story, you follow him as he is accompanied by other royals battling through time and space, fighting with and against gods and goddesses, and even sometimes his own family. So a lot of the book does focus about family dynamics and how they play both in the fantasy world and real life, and how we can connect to characters and their backstories throughout very different ways. And again, how we can understand them and sometimes agree with what they're doing or disagree, even though we know like maybe, okay, yeah, maybe that was not the best way of going with your situation or expressing your feelings, but I can understand why you thought it was. And again, just really connecting with these characters, and again, seeing the different family dynamics in the setting of a fantasy world.
Yeah, and to you, what makes a great story?
Oh, for me, a great story is only great as its characters. So you can have the best plot ever, you can write a full, synopsis. This is what's going to happen here, here, and here. Great. But if your characters are boring, there's no point, because I think I have to care about what the characters are going through for me to continue the series, or for me to even care about the story itself, because I feel those are what drive the story. If your characters are just Jim and Tom, and Jim and Tom are brothers, and that's it, that's all we know about them. We don't know if they have dislikes, we don't know if they like each other, we don't know what's going on. We just know Jim and Tom have to go, conquer an island or something, and that's it. Like, no, you need to keep a reader, or at least for me, engaged. And the best way to do it is, again, making interesting characters. And again, just making sure they're engaging and through the story, so we can again follow them through their journey, because I want to support or not support the characters, but I can only do that if they're intriguing, or they're interesting, or they're again worth that journey.
Yeah, and for the story, for the characters in your story, what do they want, and how did you think about their character arc and their stories?
Yeah, so for them, they are, I love to call them, they're my own little soapbox of characters that I've created. But I always tell my friends and other readers, I'm like, I'm so sorry. Don't be mad at me about who is going to be hurt in this book. Just read it. It's okay. Like, don't be mad, because I have a thing of making favorite characters go through the worst things.
Uh,
Um, but I really wanted, again, to make sure they felt realistic. So I did not really pull from my own life, but again, pull from other family dynamics I've seen in TV, seen in other media, from other experiences, lived experiences from people I've talked to and connected with, to really make characters that felt real and understandable, but not perfect. Roderick is nowhere near perfect, and he makes many mistakes, and that's okay. He's not human, but he's part human. And that's fine. And you get to see why he makes the mistakes he makes. You get to see why he tries to fix things, and strives to be a better person. The same thing with the second protagonist, Princess Arcelia. You also see from her perspective, like why she tries to do the things she does, why she, I don't want to spoil anything, but why she, acts the way she acts throughout the series, and how she changes over time. And again, none of this is just like nothing is just solved over like the course of one story, because these are again dynamic characters, and they grow, and they're complex. So, we all know not everything, 10 years of trauma can be fixed in 3 months. That would be nice for everybody, but we all know everything is a process, and it takes time, and there's ups and downs. So you follow these characters through their ups and downs, and root for their ups more than their downs most of the time. Even though I do like to give them a lot of downs, but that's on me.
I mean, when you're the writer, you have the pen, you get to say what goes.
Yeah.
And speaking of the journey and ups and downs, what's the best advice you've ever received as a founder running a company?
I think the best advice was not to see everyone as competition, and see people also as learning opportunities. Um, I say this a lot, that, you can never have, at least for our space, you can never have too many books. There's a room for everyone's story, and room and space for everyone's book on the shelf. So I'm not the only indie publisher out there. I can't and don't think I should be publishing everyone's book. Again, I'm not trying to publish everyone's book. I'm really trying to, find people who I think are great writers who haven't had the opportunity, whether it be for X amount of reasons, or people who, again, just have stories that are unique that we don't get to hear most of the time, have that platform to speak it. And, knowing and realizing like, I don't need to always be, okay, this book publishing company, like, what are they doing? How can I be better than? They may be, catering to a whole different audience. They may be only doing paranormal genre books. And, they might just only be doing cookbooks. Like I don't need to be beefing with the cookbook publishing company because they're, so again, listening and understanding and learning and finding what, again, asking for help and, making sure I'm not seeing everyone as just competition, but seeing them as, okay, let me see how they do things, or how can, asking them like, how do you do this? Or how do you set up this? If no one wants to talk to you, it's fine. Like sometimes people don't want to give that information for free, and that's okay. There will be someone who does. And once you meet them and you get to collaborate them, you guys can, again, maybe work in the future, or you learn something from them and you grow and they can grow too, because they can learn some new things from you. So, seeing, forgot who told me, but making sure like I don't see everybody in my industry or just in business in general as just competition, but also, again, collaborators and peers in the space really helped me to, again, expand and grow and get to where I am now.
No, that's very well said, and I'm thank you again for sharing it. Lastly, and I have to make sure before we get out of here, you talk a little bit about your book taste and what you've been up to and reading. So let us know what you read last, now, like what you're reading now, and the next book you're reading.
Yes. Okay. So I'm bad with book names, as I am
No
bad
worries.
with any type of name, but I do know oh my goodness. It is, I think She Who Catches the Sun, or She Who something the Sun, which helps nobody. But and then I was reading Daughter of the Moon Goddess. That's the last book I finished. And it was it's a based off of Asian folklore, and it was really, I loved it. It was great. And I have to go read the prequel. But I definitely, I feel like I always buy more books and read them, but I never, anytime someone's like, oh, so what are you reading? I'm like, oh, it's the book with the yellow cover
Exactly.
that has like the lady, and she has like an afro, and they're like, Winnie, I don't know what are you talking about? I'm like, well, I'm like, just like close your eyes and visualize it. Like and I know my Google is so confused because I'm always trying to get names, and it's like, who are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, I know this book exists. I bought it at Barnes and Noble 2 weeks ago. So I know what it is. But definitely, if I would recommend the book, Daughter of the Moon Goddess, and I hope I am saying the title of that book correctly too. That was a really fun fantasy story. Again, about women empowerment and, self-worth and, finding your own story and writing your own path. So it was a really great book. And whenever I can remember the name of the other book I'm currently reading, I'll be sure to, if anyone asks, if you probably shoot me a message on some social media, I'll probably be like, oh yeah, it was this. Here's the cover. But yeah, I do, like I said, I do tend to, I think like every book lover, buy more than I read. But any way I can support, I will, again, if I just see a pretty cover, I'm like, give it to me, and we'll read it when we read it. But
Yep, that's good. Yeah, make sure to definitely track your books on Bookum as well as put them in the TBR list. We have it there for you. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Let us know how we can support you and anything that's coming up in your future.
sure. So best way is, again, checking me out on winsbookspublishing.com. That is our publishing company website. And it's Wins with one N. And you can also check me out on Instagram, and Facebook and X or Twitter at Wins Books. And then for TikTok, it's Wins Books Publishing. And, or again, if you just search up Winnie Tataw, something will pop up and you'll probably see my smiling face. And again, those are the best ways to contact me to get more information about my writing or book publishing. Or if you just want to read my blog where I share different author spotlights, book spotlights, check out winsbooks.blog. And that's where you can find all of our blogs about the writing world, about authors and their new journeys, especially most of our authors we spotlight are indie authors or new authors with new books coming out. So definitely check that out and, stop by and say hi.
Yeah, Wen, thank you again for being on the podcast. You're doing important work, so it's been just a pleasure talking with you. We'll make sure to continue to support you. And yeah, again, thank you so much for talking with us today.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yep, take care.